This was a disappointing result. And the result was Hawaii football losing 40-6 to Arizona in week 1 in a game that was probably closer than the final score indicated. But there were too many missed opportunities, too many missed tackles, and too many missed reads. I'm recording this a little under 24 hours since the game finished, so there's been some time to digest some things and cool off from making any irrational hot takes. For one, you don't get disappointed unless you have expectations. And that's a testament to the off-season improvements and the performance in week 0 against Stanford that this team had heading into this matchup against Arizona. Most experts and fans pegged this game as a loss before the season started, so really, the team was playing with house money. Now, watching this on TNT as a fan, there were moments that got me excited. When the team got 5 first downs on their second possession, I was like, cool, great, we're winning the time of possession. When Conte hit that field goal as time expired in this first half, I'm like, great, this team has a chance. But when you start Micah Alejado at quarterback, who has not lost a game since being a starter since his junior year of high school, and has also not thrown an interception since then, you're going to have expectations that this team can go out there and compete, potentially cover that 17.5 point spread, or possibly even steal a game on the road to go up 2-0. I got a text before the game that said, dang it, now that I know Micah is playing, I have talked myself into Hawaii winning just like I did against Stanford. I will now be devastated if we lose. And that's just kind of how it is, right? Now, I know a lot of fans, a lot of people that are watching this program has opinions on whether or not Micah should have played, or whether or not he should have started, whether or not he should have just sat down this game and heal up his right ankle. And we'll get into that later in this video. But injuries are part of the game. There's no doubt about that, right? I mean, we saw on the first punt attempt by Billy Gowers that you had Jarvis Himuli with a non-contact injury running downfield gets hurt and might be done for the rest of the season. Those things are always scary. You can't control that kind of thing. But there are things you can control. And my biggest thing for this game that I felt like Hawaii kind of got away from was in the play calling, right? We saw on that second drive when they got like 5 first downs and took it into the Arizona red zone. When they mixed up the run and the pass, this team looked good. And for the most part, in that drive, they were in their base 10 personnel, right? With 1 running back and 4 receivers. And it looked good. But when we got to the red zone, that's where I think we got away from what was working for us, right? This team had 7 snaps in the red zone against Arizona. 3 of those snaps came with Micah Alejado at quarterback, and 4 of those snaps came with Luke Weaver at quarterback. So I'm not making the red zone play calling a quarterback helping because both quarterbacks saw time in the red zone. But the thing is, when you get in the red zone, there's less space to operate. And on those 7 snaps, they were all pass plays. And that is a bit concerning because, again, there's limited airspace in the red zone, right? The passing lanes, the passing windows, they're not there because the field is so constricted because you're getting to the nitty-gritty, you're trying to punch it over the goal line. And usually in these situations, teams have an effective running game to get them over the hump, right? I mean, we watched the Super Bowl between the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots, where Pete Carroll decided to pass the ball instead of run the ball and hand it off to Marshawn Lynch. Now, we don't have a Marshawn Lynch on this roster, but you do have to be able to run the ball in the red zone. If you can't run the ball in the red zone, then that's concerning. And hopefully that's something that this coaching staff will address. And hopefully this is something that the coaching staff will fix, because you cannot, yes, this is the run and shoot This is the Hawaii team that likes to air it out. But no running plays in the red zone. You cannot have that happen. Now, this game did kind of get away from Hawaii too. They were, after that Conte field goal to end the first half, they were trailing 17-6, still manageable. 2-possession game, down 11 points. Now, Arizona did score on their first possession of the second half to go up by 3 scores. Sure, their first run of the second half was stopped for a loss of 3 yards, but there were 6 consecutive pass plays after that by Micah Alejado that went for non-positive yards. And when I say non-positive yards, it was either an incomplete or a negative play, where I think after that 3-yard loss and second down, there was an incomplete pass, so it was 3rd and 13. On 3rd and 13, the University of Arizona gets their 4th sack of the game. On the next possession, we'd have 3 straight incompletions, so no running game there. And on the very next play, which would have been the 6th straight drop back for Micah Alejado, they run a little pass to the running back, goes off the running back's hands, and it's intercepted. So that's Micah Alejado's first interception in a real game since his junior year. And again, Micah Alejado was not 100%. I think we were putting a little bit too much on his shoulders, on his plate, down 3 scores. Now, I understand the time, the situation, the deficit. You're going to have to pass the ball. But Hawaii was doing such a great job in that first half of playing ball control and keeping it away from Arizona. And I personally would have liked to seen a bit more conservativeness instead of trying to get everything back, right? In last week's win against Stanford, as a lot of commenters have pointed out, a lot of fans have pointed out, not only do we have a weapon at kicker in Kansei Matsuzawa, but we have a stud at punter with Billy Gowers. We didn't really get to see much of that in this game because not only did we not punt the ball as much or play the field position game, Hawaii also turned it over 5 times. And yes, the run defense kind of struggled in this game, but Arizona, they just play complementary football, right? When the defense gets a takeaway, your offense, the job of the offense is to go out there and score. And Arizona, they got 5 takeaways and they recycled those into 24 points. And you just take away half of those points and you have a different point total at the end of this game. So it was just kind of frustrating watching all around. Now let's get into the topic of whether or not Micah Alejado should have played against Arizona. And I've kind of gone back and forth with this. On Monday, I may have said to some other folks that if he's cleared to play, he's going to play. For starters, when he comes out after the Stanford game and tells the media, which essentially telling the world, that he would die for his teammates, you're going to have the expectation that a little sprained ankle, if he's cleared to play, he's going to play. Because you've kind of already announced that that's your intention. If you say you're going to die for your teammates and then you don't play when you're cleared to play, that's kind of the opposite of what you're saying, right? You're not walking the talk. You're not walking your talk. Now, Monday, I probably felt that if Micah's good to play, then he's going to play. Or you should put him out there. For those in the media that go to practice on Tuesday and Wednesday, Micah Alejado didn't take part in any 11-on-11 action. He was pretty much just off to the side, supporting his teammates or just getting some work in on his own. And that signals to me at least that, hey, he's probably not going to play. But, Steven Tsai reported before the game that, Micah Alejado took all the reps on the practices that was close to the media. So you kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess he's going to play and he's the guy. But, it's hard for a team when you practice half the week with one guy at quarterback and then you practice the second half of the week with another guy at quarterback. Now, I'm not saying, again, it's not just the quarterback's fault. It's everybody's job to execute. But there is something to be said that Micah Alejado is a left-handed quarterback while Luke Weaver is a right-handed quarterback. The ball just comes out differently. Not to mention that different quarterbacks throw different kind of balls. Some quarterbacks throw balls that are more catchable. Some quarterbacks, they throw like faster balls, harder balls that you kind of have to focus in and lock in on the catch instead of catching the ball and trying to make a move after it. Balls also come out differently from people's hands. There's a different speed. Some people's windup is also different. Quarterbacks, when they throw, there's a fast release. Some quarterbacks, it's a little bit of a longer release. So those are all just different things to factor in terms of some of the drops that we saw receivers have. On Wednesday, when Micah Alejado didn't participate on 11-on-11 activities, we had Luke Weaver in there. And Luke Weaver, there were some balls in practice on Wednesday that some of the receivers dropped. And I just kind of took that as, hey, they need to just adjust to his passes. And Luke Weaver, to his credit, after practice on Wednesday, before he spoke to the media, he took some time to work on that connection with his receivers. And I was fully expecting Luke Weaver to start. Now, I'm not saying that Micah Alejado couldn't come into the game, but when you go into these matchups, you kind of want to have your set starter going into the game. It probably was the coaching staff intention to start Micah Alejado all this time, but personally, I would have liked to see Luke Weaver start. Now, you can play Micah Alejado, but I would probably rather see Luke Weaver take majority of the snaps, because you also have to consider the pieces that are available on your roster, right? Hawaii didn't have right guard Kuaupe Hopa. Tight end Devin Tauefa did not practice, and receiver Brandon White was also limited. So we kind of saw some of that rear its head in the Arizona game, because without any tight ends and Devin Tauefa, the team couldn't use any of their 11 personnel packages where you have a one running back, one tight end, and 3 receivers. That's one part of the playbook that's already not there. And usually the tight end, they can be there for short yardage. They can help in the running game. They can also help in pass protection where they could do a chip or release. So you had that piece missing. Not to mention you're down a right guard. You have a backup in there in Judah Kaio. Those were all factors that I think the coaching staff should have considered in who they started at quarterback, right? It's unfortunate that the coaching staff went into this game starting a quarterback who was limited by a right ankle sprain, and also with a playbook that was missing part of its plays, because we didn't have a tight end to use in this matchup against Arizona. One more thing to consider in whether or not you should sit Micah Alejado for a game is that this is a really long stretch for the University of Hawaii football team to start the season, right? They have 6 straight games without a bye week. We have 2 more non-conference games before we have a conference game against Fresno State at home, and then a road game at Air Force before our first real bye week to get these players recovered from some injuries. For me, personally, I think they should sit Micah Alejado either against Sam Houston State or Portland State. And to me, it doesn't matter which one. I just think you should probably hold him out of one of those games, right? You have a Sam Houston State team that is 0-2. I believe the betting lines have already come out via Circa Sports that Hawaii is a 10-point favorite. So that game might be a game you look at that is manageable. Or you could look at sitting Micah Alejado against Portland State, who is also 0-2 and is coming off a 69-0 loss to BYU. Now, of course, if you sit Micah Alejado, that means Luke Weaver will be the starting quarterback for that game. And let's kind of talk about Luke Weaver's performance against Arizona, because it was hot, but then it was also cold in some aspects, because he did commit 3 turnovers, right? I believe he had a lost fumble as well as 2 interceptions. One positive about Luke Weaver that I think was good was that he used his legs. And that is something that this team, that this offense is going to need from the quarterback position, is a quarterback that can use his legs. You know, we talk about taking what the defense gives you, and sometimes what the defense gives you is a running lane for your quarterback to go out and get some positive yards. I mean, you look at NFL offenses nowadays, right? You look at some of the great quarterbacks, some of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. Who do we have? Lamar Jackson, mobile. Josh Allen, mobile. Patrick Mahomes, mobile. Jalen Hurts, mobile. Those are guys that can use their legs to manipulate the pocket or go out and get some positive yards on the ground. And that is something that we saw Nick Rolovich use when he was the head coach of Hawai'i in using the run and shoot, is that he had quarterbacks that could use their legs in Cole McDonald and Chevin Cordero and had some design runs, right? Now, if you have a quarterback in Micah Alejado who is dealing with an injury, your desire or your earnest to call some of those running plays for your quarterback or for him to take off and run or get outside of the pocket on some rollouts, it kind of decreases, right? But when we got Luke Weaver in there, he was able to use legs, get some positive yards. I believe he even scrambled for a first down for a 10-plus yard run or so. So that was something good to see. He also seemed to have developed a connection with redshirt freshman Tama Uliata. You know, I'm a Waipahu guy, so it warms my heart to see somebody like Tama Uliata do well, someone that I covered in high school. And Luke Weaver also threw about 2 passes into the end zone that should have been caught for touchdowns. Now, his interceptions, definitely not something to write home about or something to defend, because the first one was kind of a bad read in the end zone. But I think if you go into a game week fully intending Luke Weaver to be the starter, I think he's going to surprise some folks. And he can definitely lead this team to a win or two at home. On the road, it's a little bit tougher. But at home, sleeping in your own bed, playing before your own fans, playing at the 6 o'clock hour local time zone that any team coming over might take some while for them to used to. I think it's a safe bet to start Luke Weaver against either Sam Houston State or Portland State, rest up Micah Alejado, and have him be ready to go against Fresno State in games that actually matter when it comes to the Mountain West Conference. And seeing some of the results this past week makes you think that this conference is wide open, right? I mean, in week 0, UNLV kind of struggled against Idaho State. Last week, we saw Boise State lose to 2024 Hawaii Bowl champion University of South Florida. And we also saw San Jose State kind of struggle in their loss to Central Michigan. So I definitely think prioritizing wins in conference play is something that this coaching staff should really kind of take a step back and look at the big picture and not put your QB1's health in jeopardy. Now, if there is a silver lining that Micah Alejado participated in this game, it's this. For one, he got that interception streak out of the way. He was definitely not going to maintain his no interception streak dating from junior year all throughout his college career. So he got that out of his way. He also got the fact that he hasn't lost since being a starter since his junior year. That's out of the way. But it was also probably the first time in his football career that his body failed him, right? And I mean, we've all been there young, right? Or some of us that are a little bit older. There are things that our body can't do that it used to do when we were younger. And for Micah Alejado, again, you got to respect him. You got to take pride that he is someone that's willing to put his body on the line. But I think for him, he realized, hey, I'm not at 100%. And if I'm not at 100%, or if I'm not good enough to make certain plays, then I'm not doing my part to help this team. And I was kind of encouraged by some of his post-game comments, because I think that shows a young quarterback that is maturing. That shows a young quarterback that's realizing that, hey, I'm not superhuman. There's still limitations. And that's what life is, right? How do we operate within our limitations and maximize our potential and maximize what we can do to succeed? I do want to play some of his comments that he said after the game so that you can hear for yourself how he feels.
Back to, just getting the swelling down. He just stepped on my foot, ended up being on the bruise, and I just felt that whole drive. So, I mean, I feel good. It's just more so, just keep recovering and keep getting better. Yeah, of course it's frustrating, but it just comes with football. And, I just got to be expecting of it. And just got to do what I got to do to get better. I was good enough to go. Coach Shea allowed me to play, and, I appreciate him for that. But, at the end of the day, it probably wasn't the best decision to play. But, I was good enough to go.
So by the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like the injury is as bad as it looked because he was still kind of upbeat. He wasn't too sad about it. But one thing I do like is that he said that, Coach Timmy gave him the opportunity to play and he was appreciative of that. But he also said at the end of the day, that probably wasn't the smartest decision. That's something that you hear and you listen and you hope that if he doesn't feel like he's ready to go against the next two opponents, that he listens to his body and that he prioritizes long-term success versus short-term gain. So yeah, while this was a disappointing game to watch and see the final result, you don't get disappointment unless you have expectations. And this team has fans, has people around the state, has people around the country believing in this Hawaii football team. I just hope that we can all look at the big picture, which is to win the war. And sometimes to win the war, you might have to lose the battle. But that's how success is, right? Success is a process where you stack on building blocks to lead to success. And hopefully for this team, they don't get too distraught over this loss. There are some positive things in this game to take home. And hopefully they can just kind of watch the film, review, recover, move on, and get ready for Saturday when they take on Sam Houston State.